Good evening. Welcome to the board session, work session for October 24th, 2022. Please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is held in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The news media has been notified, and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. This meeting is open to the public. All persons wishing to attend the meeting by virtual means may do so via YouTube Sumter School District Board meetings and Sumter School District Facebook page. Vision. Sumter School District is committed to educating, empowering, and enriching the lives of all students to reach their full potential. Mission. Sumter School District is committed to providing a safe, nurturing, and high-quality educational environment that supports diversity and equips students for local and global success. Your board members are yours truly, Barbara Jackson. I represent Area 7 and I'm the chairwoman. Dr. J. Frank Baker, seat 8, our vice chair. Dr. Darrell McGaney, Area 5, he is our clerk. Mr. Brian Alston, Area 1. Mrs. Cheryl Ray, Area 2. Mr. Mac McLeod, Area 3. Dr. John B. Hilton, Area 4. Dr. Gloria Rose Lee, Area 6. Dr. Sean Reagan, Seat 9. Ms. Denise Jones, our Shaw Air Force Base representative. Dr. William Wright, our superintendent. And Ms. Shantae Scott, our administrative manager. This meeting is now called to order. Welcome to Croswell Elementary School. I want to thank our principal, Dr. Sean Haggerty, and his staff for hosting this meeting. Thank you, Dr. Haggerty and staff. Are there any objections to the approval of the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda will stand approved. Trustees, are there any announcements you wish to share at this time?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Dr. Hilton.
I had a delightful visit this morning at Millwood, and Ms. Wright, the principal there, and I visited, walked around the building, saw some good things going on. I also visited Alice Drive Elementary and Principal Titus. Walked me around the building, and there are lots of good things going on at Alice Drive as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hilton. Anyone else? I would just like to say thank you to the Teacher Forum for the forums that you have provided for our candidates, for the school folks, for the school board. I thought that they were very well executed, and I think that everyone is most appreciative of that. I'd also like to say thank you to the NAACP for the efforts that they are putting forth now to do some of the forums for all areas as well. So those are just things that I would like to acknowledge. Anyone else as far as committee reports are concerned? I've been informed by Dr. Hilton that he does not have a legislative update at this time, so we will now move to the superintendent's report.
And that's because the legislature is not discussing any business related to education.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hilton. That's what he's saying. Okay, Dr. Wright, please proceed with the superintendent's report.
Madam Chair, we skipped the committee report.
Beg pardon?
We skipped the committee report.
I'm really ahead of myself. Let me put these glasses back on. I'm sorry. Thank you, Dr. Reagan. Okay, let's back up a little bit. We're now back to our committee reports. Any committee reports?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
The Facilities Committee met October the 18th, last Tuesday at the district office. We, as a committee, met and we received information from our Director of Operations, Mr. Sam Myers, as well as the Director of Maintenance, Mr. Christopher Cato. We also traveled to the 3 high schools where we're able to do our facility site visits as we regularly do as a committee, and we went to, of course, Crestwood, Lakewood, and Sumter High. We moved forward in our committee meeting on last Tuesday by having a discussion and brought back a recommendation. And at this time, the recommendation is for the full board to have further discussion and receive further information centered around placing the 3 high schools under what we would consider our pilot program for adding metal detectors inside of our 3 high schools. And so we do have the information loaded in board docs this evening for the full board to review and later to have further discussion on it. Thank you.
Madam Chair. The policy committee will be meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the district office. Sean, to move on.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we're now down to the superintendent's report. Dr. Wright, would you please proceed with your superintendent's report?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I do not have a formal report tonight other than to say that our districts, we'll hear some information from me a little bit later on in the agenda, but we are proud of the fact that we have finished our first quarter of work, and our students and staff seem to be coming along nicely. Also, the district was fortunate enough to provide a retention bonus to our employees that the district approved before my arrival. I think employees are excited about receiving that, and we're looking forward to continuing to move our district forward towards our goals, which we will be talking about very shortly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wright. That covers all of that, or do you have any other?
Right, we'll get to 4.1. Are we ready for that?
Yes,
okay.
sir, you may
all right.
proceed on
Okay. So at this point, we're ready for item 4.1, Madam Chair, members of the Board of Trustees, which will be the SC Pass Perfect Scores presentation. The appropriate people will come forward at this time for those wonderful presentations. Dr. Moore, Dr. Lamont Moore will be presenting.
Right. Good evening to everyone. Dr. Jackson, Board of Trustees. It's great to see everyone. Dr. Wright. We're excited tonight because this is an opportunity for us to celebrate our students. We have quite a few updates that we want to share with the board and with the community about how we have performed last school year, spring assessments. And as you know, assessments are not an easy thing. And sometimes when you mention that to students, they're not the happiest to hear about tests and assessments. But tonight we have invited some students who are perfect scorers, and I do want to take a moment to recognize those students who receive perfect score on not only the South Carolina PASS assessment, but also the South Carolina Ready assessment. So we are going to just call out those names. And for the families, thank you so much for joining us tonight. When you hear your loved one's voice, or their name, the student will come forth to receive the certificate. Dr. Wright, I'll invite you to come and present the certificate to the student, and then we'll get a photo op. At the end of all of the names, we'll get a photo of all the students. But we're very excited for those students who have received perfect scores or the highest score possible on the spring 2022 state testing. So our first recipient is from Alice Drive Elementary, and it goes to Jonathan Hickok. So Jonathan, if you are here. Our next person is from Rafting Creek Elementary School, and I think principal is here as well. This goes to Layla Wilson. All right, our next student comes from Alice Drive Elementary, and his name is Parker Wood. From Alice Drive Middle School, we have Corbin Inbody. All right, so the final three students we heard are under the weather, but we may have some family members here to receive for them, but we do want to recognize them. From Millwood Elementary School, Caden Mitchell. From High Hills Elementary, Carly Caraway. I don't know if we have a family member. We'll give her a round of applause. And last, from Alice Drive Middle, Elizabeth Davis.
Camera shy, but we're going to get her as well.
All right, and we just want to invite all of the students up for one final picture. So students, if you received a certificate, we're going to invite you up for one group picture, and then we'll be finished with this portion of the agenda. Yeah, make sure you bring your certificates.
While Dr. McLeod is coming, please give those young folks another round of applause for achieving at a high level. At this time, we want to transition into the data and accountability update, which will be tag teamed by Dr. Lamont Moore, who you just heard from, and Dr. J. McLeod, our Executive Director of Academics. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. And once again, we are very proud of our students that scored such an accomplishment on the SC Pass and SC Ready test. That is truly an accomplishment. This evening, I'd like to say good evening to Dr. Jackson, Chairwoman, Vice Chair Dr. Baker, Dr. Wright, Superintendent, and the members of the Board of Trustees. The Office of Academics is here to share the district report card data released to the public last Monday. We also have other members of the academics office that have worked on this with us, and some of which are here tonight in case there are additional questions specific to their area or areas. And in addition to Dr. Moore, who serves as the Director of Accountability, Coordinator of Gifted and Talented, and Coordinator of Multilingual Languages. That's the new term. Dr. David Laws, who serves as Director of CTE and Instructional Technology. Dr. Emily Kempton, who serves as Coordinator of English Language Arts, AVID, World Languages, and Read to Succeed. Carla King, who serves as the Coordinator of Mathematics, APEX, other virtual learning opportunities, and homeschool learning. Richard Phillips, who serves as Coordinator of Science, Social Studies, PE, Health, Fine Arts, and STEM. Ms. Kristen Carnes, who serves as our English Language Arts Elementary Specialist, and she is the point of contact for our new training in letters, which we'll be speaking about in just a little bit, and Monica Pate, who is our Elementary Mathematics Specialist. So I just wanted to note that the vision and mission of Sumter School District drives the work that we do in the Office of Academics. It is our goal to serve, support, and strengthen every school in Sumter, South Carolina. Tonight's presentation will provide information for the accountability metrics for the 2022 report card. So I am going to ask Dr. Moore to walk us through that piece of it at this time.
All right, good evening again. So just a quick review. The district report card is, of course, created through the collaboration of the Educational Oversight Committee and the South Carolina Department of Ed. This particular slide has the different components of the report card that we will be looking at today. So it's broken into two categories: academics and school environment. We're going to cover most of the components today that are rated and that are calculated for our district and school scores. So just a review of those categories. Academic achievement, we're going to start there. Academic achievement measures the performance of our students in the subject areas of ELA, or English Language Arts, and mathematics. And so this is going to be looking at proficiency of those two subject areas. It also captures the English 1 EOC as well as the Algebra 1 EOC. The first couple of slides we'll be looking at how our district compares to the state. And so you'll see in English Language Arts, the state was at 46.6%, and this is looking at those students who are percent met or exceeded. So this is proficiency, and our district for last year was at 29.8% in English Language Arts. Now this is only students in grades 3rd through 8th on the South Carolina Ready Assessment. So again, this is South Carolina Ready Assessment, English Language Arts. Our district 29.8% proficient as compared to the state at 46.6% proficient. Next slide. Mathematics. Again, this is 3rd through 8th grade students on South Carolina Ready. Our district was at 19.4% proficient, and the state was at 38.9% proficient. English 1, the EOC for students, this is looking at students that score a C or higher on the EOC exam. And this is for our students who take that exam in middle and high school. Our district 42.5%, state 57.9%. Algebra 1, scoring C or higher, our district 23.8%, the state 44.2%. So we have the state comparisons to our district performance. We also wanted to take a look at how we have done as a district pre-pandemic and how we did as compared to last year. So this particular slide gives you trend data. It starts from 2017, looking at how we performed. There will be a space for 2020 because, as you remember, during the pandemic, testing was suspended, so there's no data for that particular year. And then you'll see the final 2 years, 2021, which was the year prior to last, and then last year, 2022. So this gives you at a glance. In blue, you'll see the number of students we had proficient. In yellow, those are the students that are not proficient. One thing to note, and when we compare our performance to how we did in 2021, there was an increase in our the amount of students we had proficient from 24.5% to 29.8%. Next slide. As it relates to math, this is the same chart. We're looking at how Sumter has performed over the years. And you can see an increase from 2021 to 2022 in the amount of students we had proficient. Next slide. This is EOC, or Algebra 1, and it looks slightly different, but it's the same concept. You'll see on the vertical axis the years from 2017 all the way up to 2022, and you'll see those same comparisons. In blue, these are the number of students we had that scored a C or above on the EOC exam, and in yellow, those students who scored below a C on the exam. You can see that there was an increase in the amount of students passing the EOC in Algebra 1 as it compared to last year. The English 1 EOC, you'll see the same information. In blue, those students who scored C or above. In yellow, those students who scored less than a C. And you'll see that we did have a slight decline from 2021 to 2022 in the amount of students that passed the English 1 EOC.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question?
This time.
Yes.
I just wanted to go back to the first scores, the numbers there, where it says, like the one I'm looking at for English Language Arts, 1947, and then 6536. What is that?
So those are the amount of students. So 1947, that's the amount of students who actually took the test.
So is it 6536 the amount that should have taken the test?
That's the amount of students that were proficient. So that 29.8%, saying how many met or exceeded the standard, that equals 1947, or that amount of
so
students.
6536 is the total that took the test?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I needed. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So preparing for success looks at other subject areas. So we are looking at social studies and science. And as you remember, for grades 3 through 8, there is not a state assessment for social studies. So most of the data you'll see will only reflect science until we get to the EOC, and you'll see some data for the U.S. history EOC. So in science, on the South Carolina PASS assessment, this is the percent met or exceeded for our district. We were at 31.2% as a district, and as compared to the state at 46%. Biology, scoring C or higher on the biology EOC, 34.2% for Sumter School District, 46.9% for the state. The U.S. History and Constitution exam, 20% for our school district, 37.8% for the state. And so similarly, we're going to look at, these slides will show how we compare over the years from 2017 all the way up to 2022. And you can see where we are. Of course, again, the blue is proficient, the yellow is not proficient. This is South Carolina PASS or science for 4th grade and 6th grade students. And as you can see, there was an increase, there was an increase in proficiency when you compared last year to this year. Just go back one more, Ms. Scott, and you'll see that increase 3.2%. Okay, next slide. Biology EOC, you'll see that there is an increase from last year to this year of 13.01% of those students who scored proficient. The U.S. History, Constitution EOC, there was a decline of about 9.36 percentage points of those students who were proficient. And as you recall, we had some new standards for this particular exam, and this year the assessment was not included in any ratings for any school district because this was the first time the students took the exam. Our English Learners Progress looks at how our students who are multilingual learners have performed on the Access assessment that we give to all of them, and we give that test annually just to see how well they're progressing with their proficiency in the English language, and that's also reported in the report card. We're going to look at how they performed as compared to the state as well as over the years. As compared to the state, our multilingual learners were at 60.2% as meeting progress on towards their proficiency target, as compared to the state, 54.3%. And over time, you can see how this particular group has performed. Pre-pandemic, they were 45.2, 44.7. Then we did see a decline after the pandemic with a lot of the virtual learning, 25.1% proficient. But this year, we saw a huge increase of 35.1% in bringing a lot of our multilingual learners back on track towards proficiency with the English language. Student progress looks at how well students have performed historically and how they compare to what has been predicted of their performance. So there is a formula that predicts how students should perform based on their past performance, and if students meet that expectation or exceed it, districts and schools can get points for showing progress in student growth. So this is another aspect that looks at data a little bit differently, but we like to look at this part because it shows the impact of student growth in our schools. So for student progress, our district had 52.4%, showing that we have received the percentage of the percentage of progress points that we earned. The state was at 51.1%. The graduation rate, this looks at within 4 years if our students graduate on time. Now, just a couple of disclaimers, does not take in consideration those students who enter into the adult ed program or those students who actually need that 5th year to complete graduation. This is only looking at the 4-year cohort or those students who were able to graduate within 4 years. Our district's graduation rate was 77.9% for last year, compared to the state at 83.8%. And this particular slide also, you'll see the trend on this portion of the report card from 2019 up to 2022. It also reveals our dropout rate and our dropout recovery rate. College and career readiness, we always are looking to make sure that we are making sure that students are college or career ready. And so there are different ways to look at that. We look at our ACT, SAT scores. We look at our CTE completion rates. And so all of those things are taken in consideration to determine whether or not we are making students college and career ready. And I know it's a little bit small, but you can see these are state and district comparisons. In orange is how our district is performed as it relates to in green to the state. All right, next slide. School improvement. Many of you may remember that for school improvement, there are different categories for schools who need additional support from the State Department. We can go to the next slide, Ms. Scott. Right now, the Department of Ed and the EOC are still going through results to calculate which schools have met the requirements to possibly come off of any priority or ATSI or TSI school improvement list. We won't get that information until December of 2022, and so once that information is available, hopefully we'll have an opportunity to come back and share those results with the Board of Trustees, but we're still waiting to get that information. The school environment, the piece that we're going to cover is the school climate survey. This year we did a slightly different survey for the students. Instead of using the Cognia survey that we have used in the past, we used survey through our PowerSchool platform, but the next slide will reveal how we did with our perceptions. And as you can see, these surveys will ask our teachers and our students what their perceptions are of school climate and various things as it relates to school climate. So the overall perceptions you'll see listed on this slide. In orange, of course, our school district as compares to what is said across the state with those same questions. This slide also shows you the teacher perceptions, how teachers perceive the instructional focus as our teachers, as well as how they compare to the state perceptions. Here's more about teacher perceptions on the working conditions within our schools as compared to what teachers are saying across the state. Teacher perceptions of safety, district versus state. Student perceptions of social and physical environment, our district versus the state, as well as student perceptions of safety. And here you have the participation rates, the percentages of teachers that participated, as well as the percentage of students that participated, our district as compared to our state.
Who participated in the survey?
Yes, yes.
Madam Chair, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did we go back to the college and career ready and have y'all discuss what determines that? What testing or factors?
So for the students at the beginning, where it says students in the graduation cohort who are college or career ready. So there are many different ways that you can show that you are college ready. We look at ACT, SAT scores. There are many different ways that you can show that you are career ready. So we look at if they are completing certain requirements as far as coursework, and if they're also involved in our career and technology or technical programs, if they're completers there. So depending on that student's pathway and what they've completed, they may be considered career ready and not college ready. They may be considered career ready and college ready based on what they've completed. And so we kind of look at those percentages separately. So depending on what the student has completed within our schools.
So remind me, does everyone take ACT now?
They have the option to, so yes.
So what happens if somebody doesn't take the SAT, the ACT, they're not in any technology courses, they're not completers, where do they fall with this? How do we determine?
So then we look at their coursework and how well they've completed their credits towards high school graduation.
A certain percentage?
Yes. So if I don't, are you asking, do I know that percentage?
Do you?
No, I can get that information for you though.
Okay.
But essentially, if they have not done any of those things, we're going to look at just their high school coursework and if they're ready for graduation to determine that. But there are multiple ways you can determine it. Yeah.
To elaborate, this is based on the college career metric, which is the 4-year graduation cohort. So to be identified as college ready, and this just happens to be the 2022 accountability manual, which was finalized September 16th of 2022 for the previous school year. And we get an updated one when we get it. But for college ready, you've got to have an ACT of 20 or higher. You've got to have the SAT of 1,020 or higher. Have to score 3 on an AP exam. Score a C or higher in an advanced level such as AP, IB, dual enrollment. Score a 4 or higher on any IB assessment, or complete a combination of 6 credit hours in an improved dual enrollment program. For career ready, that's being a CTE completer and earning the national industry credential or the state industry credential if there is one, or earning at least a silver on what was this past year's, the ACT work keys. However, we don't know what that test will be now because there are procurement issues with the State Department, so hopefully we'll know which test they're going to use soon. Successfully completing a state-approved work-based learning program with an exit evaluation. There's a lot of parameters around that. making 31 or higher on the ASVAB, so there's quite a few. And what we've done with the high schools is that we've started tracking these students. We have spreadsheets that are completed where we continuously follow these students to make sure they are either college or career, or college and career ready, and targeting some assistance for those students that have not met that yet. We're trying to catch them before by junior and definitely by senior year. The earlier we catch them and get them the support they need to make sure that they are taking the correct coursework, taking the correct exams or opportunities to be college or career ready, the better.
Okay. All right. Dr. Hilton, I think you said you had a question.
Yes, and you've already answered it,
Yeah.
but all these criteria that you outline are set by the State Department,
That's correct.
and they change every year, or they can change.
They can change every year, yes.
Thank you very much.
Or either the assessment they're using to determine whether or not you're reaching these levels. So yes, they've been changing. We've been chasing a moving target for quite a while. And before we move into the next section, in addition with the Algebra 1 and English 1 for high schools, you have to also keep in mind that is the four-year 4-9 GR cohort. So you're looking at scores. It looks like those are the scores we earned in 22. But no, those were kids that when they were in 9th grade 4 years ago, that's what they earned, and it's pulled up to go into that year's accountability. So it's very difficult for the high schools when they're putting in improvement strategies. Sometimes you're not going to see it on the actual report card for more than 3 years. You'll see it in your individual reports as we look at our yearly data, but that's not what's actually showing up on their school report cards.
Yes,
And some of those could be 8th graders that took Algebra 1 in the 8th grade.
It's still going to be their 9 GR.
But I mean, they took it in the 8th grade.
That's correct.
So you're really 5 years out, instead of 4 years out
In some cases,
on some of those kids.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
yes, Dr. Baker.
Thank you. 2 questions. Dr. McLeod, you mentioned that the schools are doing things to catch the kids up. What types of things are they doing when they are identifying these kids that are not on track for career ready or college ready or both?
Well, they're working with the counselors and the, I always call them the career specialists to track these students. They are helping them with their course registrations to make sure if they've taken 2 courses in an area and they need a 3rd one to be a completer, and making sure that they're getting the assessment, the industry credential that would be associated is one way. Other ways is making sure that a student that needs to take the ACT is actually going to take the ACT. They're doing paperwork to register and that they're making sure that they're going to be able to be there, those kinds of things. We've started to really streamline and focus on the college and career readiness indicator to help our students meet these requirements.
Mm-hmm. And my second question ties in, and I know I've brought this up several times over the last few years, having our counselors really do directed guidance and getting these kids on track. And we're losing so many kids on the Cape side as non-completers because the counselor has not put that child in another class, and that impacts this, plus that impacts our income that comes in on our vocational side with these kids being counted as completers. And a lot of times it's just as simple as putting them in the next class or an additional class, but it might be easy on that schedule to put them in PE2. So I come back to say, who really monitors that? Do the principals monitor that? Do the district level people monitor that? Because I know I've even focus some kids. They said, look, you got to go back and get that. So who really monitors that to see that we really are doing that and getting kids in the right classes?
Well, it's a collaboration with the high school counselors and the career specialists. We monitor at the district level that they are completing the IGPs appropriately. We have someone on staff that actually follows their spreadsheets to make sure that they're coding them correctly. The principals, I've seen one of the principals sit with her counselors, myself, and actually go through that with them to make sure that they are identifying the students and identifying them in a timely manner to make sure they get the courses they need. And then with the addition of the coordinator of counseling and interventions, I think that'll be a strong support to be able to also monitor that, monitor transcripts, making sure that those things are happening that should be in the high school counseling offices.
Thank you.
You proceed. Yeah. Okay. As we studied this data, and this, of course, was not the only data that we've looked at as a team and among our school teams, we also we looked at, of course, the summative testing data, but also discipline data, attendance data, stakeholder input that came in as we were working through the strategic plans, classroom observation data, and other things like that. We really saw a need to re-engage everyone post-COVID. So the Office of Academics came up with this as our instructional focus or theme this year, which is to spark, ignite, and engage. And our focus in that is on the learner-centric classroom. At the administrative retreat, which was the first week in August, we started the ongoing dialogue about active learning and student engagement. And during that retreat, the team collaborated to spark ideas, ignite passion, and engage students and teachers. So the learner-centric refers to a wide variety of educational programs, learning experiences, different kinds of instructional approaches, and academic supports. But it's all aimed at taking care of the needs, the distinct needs, the individual needs of individual students and groups of students. So the learner-centric classrooms are measured by the Elliott observation tool, and this tool is designed to collect observational data from the classroom for coaching conversations and feedback. It's also the tool to collect classroom data for Cognia. Cognia is now the accreditation it has taken the place of what we once knew as Advanced Ed. So that is scheduled to occur for our review next year, so we're already starting those conversations. So the learner-centric classrooms are identified before you. It's the equitable learning, high expectations, supportive learning, active learning, progress monitoring, feedback, the well-managed learning environment, and digital learning. And while all of these are important in the process, the data indicates the need to focus intently on the area of active learning and active direct instruction. So during the administrative retreat, the new teacher orientation, the beginning of the year in-service trainings, the content area support has been wrapped around this focus. And we're providing ongoing training and collaboration in data discussions, research-based instructional strategies, and content each and every month. And this begins with the principals. The principal training looks a little bit different this year now that we are able to meet face-to-face. We have one meeting a month that's specifically instructionally focused, where we're having discussions about the data that they have, the most recent data, having discussions in groups about what are we going to do with it. Once we see it, how is it going to impact the classroom? We also have a virtual meeting each month for the principals, and that is focused on procedural needs for the schools. The instructional coaches training, we're meeting monthly to train the instructional coaches to follow up support in the school with rotations. The department chairs are meeting monthly to train the department chairs and work collaboratively on assessment items, instruction, and curricular concerns. And we've implemented task force committees that are meeting to train teachers to work collaboratively on the assessments, instructions, and curriculum. The coordinators are in school support monthly, and that's on a rotational basis. And the secondary content coordinators, as well as the elementary specialists, meet with each school leader and determine what the plan of support would be for that school each year. All district in-service days have been planned to support the training and implementation of the content-specific curricula. The next slide. This is just a few things with the English language arts at the elementary level. We currently have 450 teachers, interventionist coaches, and administrators participating in the letters training, which it's a course. That means, letters means language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. All the participants receive support materials to reinforce the teaching of reading foundation skills. We're providing support for schools implementing the new ELA curriculum, My View Literacy, through ongoing professional development with SAVIS and the Office of Academics. We're creating a library of curriculum and instructional resources in grade level Schoology groups and providing common unit assessments. And as I mentioned, there's an elementary task force for English language arts that is specific. And those task force groups are meeting regularly and working together to strengthen understanding of the new ELA curriculum and how it aligns to the state standards, brings all of the literacy together in one cohesive curriculum. So everything's woven together, which is helpful for the teachers. As I mentioned, they're still conducting classroom observations and meeting with the school administrators to discuss their academic achievement goals and plans and what kind of support they need. We're also ensuring regular communication with administrative teams to ensure they have everything they need and to receive the feedback from them. We send out updates weekly from the Office of Academics for the schools. Elementary mathematics is going to be very similar. We had one additional request out of elementary mathematics, and that was to meet to begin at the earliest level by meeting with Ms. Ray, Director of Early Childhood, and the pre-kindergarten teachers to have math moments to support and build their capacity. Schools for elementary mathematics received addition and subtraction and multiplication and division, building fluency toolkits for intervention and classroom use. Professional development has been held on using this, and of course follow-up training and further guidance to support this will be ongoing. And again, they have Schoology groups that are specific to the elementary mathematics, and they meet as necessary whole group through Google, face-to-face. They also provide observations and modeling of strategies. In addition, we have secondary English and language arts. The secondary trained coordinators are conducting walkthroughs through the schools and meeting with the leadership teams, and these are on 3-week rotations for them. They also include vertical teaming with the department chairs at least monthly. Reading coaches are participating in literacy labs at Tier 2 and 3 schools to study effective use of the MyView literacy curriculum and phonics and phonemic awareness instruction. I'm taking those courses too. And in those courses, you look in your mirror while you're doing it and you say it correctly. Without that southern drawl. They're also providing the Read to Succeed courses for teachers, and those include the content area reading and writing, principles of coaching, instructional practices, reading assessment, and foundations of reading. So we have several Read to Succeed courses going on at this time. The secondary mathematics has really increased their focus on the priority standards and are looking at ensuring the level of rigor to drive the instruction while, again, utilizing the engagement strategies. So they're also assisting with some of the interventions for math, such as using ALEX and Math Nation to address an individual student needs, and working on utilizing more grouping and engagement strategies in the upper level mathematics classes, and collaborating with peers across the district to share practices, and also on that continuous growth mindset that's so important. And then social studies and science. The social studies, Dr. Moore, he mentioned the new social studies test. The social studies standards actually changed in 2019, but due to COVID, there were a lot of setbacks with creating the assessment items and things like that. So this was the year of the implementation for the 2019 social studies, and that's why they did give the information, but it was not included in the metric. So a lot of professional development is occurring in unpacking these new standards to make sure that all teachers have a working knowledge of what these standards mean, and how to use the newly adopted textbooks that we've just received for social studies, and making sure that the instruction is aligned to the current standards, and creating and curating best practices relevant to support the diverse learners by boosting the engagement and active sense making in those courses. The science, I'm sorry.
Just one second, Dr. McLeod. I noticed that I welcomed Mr. Alston virtually, and I noticed that you have a question, sir.
Yes, ma'am, and I can wait to the end of the presentation because it's really just a general question concerning the Office of Academics and where we are as a district academically.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Alston. You may
Okay.
proceed, Dr. McLeod.
All right, the science is there due to the implementation of the new science standards, which were adopted in 2021. All grade levels except 4th, 6th, and Biology 1 are preparing for the 22-23 full implementation of those standards right now, and they'll be followed by those testing grade levels as priority. And again, the professional development is really focused on unpacking those standards to make sure the teachers understand and know what the content expectations are, the level of rigor is, and the science, because of the new standard adoption, has already received the new textbook adoption. So they're receiving training on those resources and to ensure that they are implementing those standards and using best practices to boost the engagement levels of the students and have them participate in active sense making. A lot of focus this year is on higher level exploration to have students have the opportunity to really take those risks in the classrooms in their learning. We want them to engage and persevere in their learning, not to quickly give up. I don't know the answer, I don't have the idea. So a lot of focus has been also spent on that perseverance in learning that it takes for students to be successful. The career in technology, a few of the additional growth strategies that we're using for that are specific to adding to the career ready metric is that the junior ROTC, which now falls under career technology, is providing the microburst soft skills instruction and the assessment for students that are enrolled in junior ROTC 1 and 2. They're also requiring that secondary CET programs provide an industry recognized assessment for the program completers. And again, that's being monitored through the counselors, the career specialists, and the leadership at the schools, as well as the CTE office. And then the department chairs with CTE are working collaboratively with the career specialists and the school guidance to really check the enrollment and completion of these students, to track them as effectively as possible. And the CTE is continuing to add engaging and rigorous programs that will prepare students to be career ready. So we're always looking out for innovative additional opportunities to provide our students. And just a note on innovation, which is part of our strategic plan. The completion of the cybersecurity mobile lab is scheduled to be completed on November 15th of this year. And the cybersecurity lab will be used to increase students' inquiry skills, problem solving, and interest in careers of innovation. We actually have a cybersecurity date scheduled actually for tomorrow in partnership with Morris College. So 10th, 11th, and 12th graders will be engaging in that tomorrow. And then the district's Pilgrim's Mobile STEAM Explorer is now in production, physical production. So the STEM Explorer is currently scheduled to be completed by February of 2023, and this mobile unit is going to provide students with additional hands-on experiences with STEM activities. And we can take any additional questions.
Mr. Alston?
Yes, ma'am, and please excuse my physical absence with you all, and thank you, Dr. McLeod, for your presentation. I really just have a question concerning, I see in the notes that we're making adjustments based on the implementation or the utilization of new textbook material. If the textbook material is to be used as supplemental instructional materials, why are we, I guess, changing curriculum to meet the textbook as opposed to teaching curriculum and using the textbook as supplemental materials to aid in the instruction or delivery of instruction?
You have it correct, but we like to provide the page numbers that would support the particular standard or objective that's being taught, and any other additional resources that could be used to teach that particular topic.
Okay. And I'm just looking at our district report cards historically, pre-COVID, during COVID, and now post-COVID, there are areas that we constantly see that we're falling behind in. has there been an audit to see what actually is working and what isn't working, as far as, I know, like, I see every year we have the strategies that we're addressing based off of what we see on the report card, but have we done a thorough audit to see what is actually working and what isn't working, so that we know moving forward how we can address these issues? Because some of these issues have been issues longer than just post-COVID.
Correct. We have participated in some audits. The last one was Read to Succeed primary audit a couple years ago. But no, we are looking at partnering more with the State Department. We have them coming in to assist us with upper mathematics and Algebra 1 and some of the other areas. One of the struggles we do have is teachers in the classroom. We all know that any research is going to tell you the number one impact in student achievement is a qualified teacher that cares about those kids in that classroom. And our schools have been doing the best they can to cover vacancies that we haven't been able to help, but until we can work together on a solution to stabilize our teaching force and the support force for those teachers, we're going to continue to struggle in every arena.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any additional questions for Dr. McLeod and Dr. Moore? Okay, thank you, both of you. We do appreciate your thorough report, and we glean a lot of information from that. And also, again, say congratulations to our students who received the awards tonight. Kudos to them and the teachers. Thank you. Dr. Wright?
Madam Chair, members of the Board of Trustees, at this time we'll proceed to item 4.3, which is under the Office of Finance, Revenue, and Expenditure Report for school year 22 and 23 by Mrs. Shatika Spearman, our Chief Finance Officer.
Good evening.
Good evening. Chairwoman Dr. Jackson, Vice Chair Dr. Baker, Clerk Dr. McGaney, and our board members, and Dr. Wright. I sit before you to give you a quick summary of our collections and expenditures. I'll start with fiscal year 2022. We did on October 12th, we received our final allocation of tax revenue for FY22 in the amount of $13,498,669.24. Although we did not collect 100% of our expected revenue in each line that you see before you for revenue, we did collect over the total amount of budgeted revenue. If you note on the fiscal year 22 revenue section, the items in red indicate over collection of what we estimated, and so we collected more than we expected. I think that's a great thing to see. Let's see. Okay, I'll talk about the stipends and the expenditure piece that was duplicated under there. As we turn to the expenditures for FY22, as we can see, we expended 93% of our expenditures that we estimated. For our fiscal year 22, we had certain areas that we had expenditures that went over our budget. Some of those areas are substitute pay, overtime pay, and terminal leave pay. For our 311 services, we did utilize iTutor services last year to the tune of about $700,000 due to the teacher shortages. Overall, again, we expended about 93% of our budget. Retention stipends were processed on Friday, October 21st, in the total amount of $2.2 million, which is $266,000 less than what was budgeted in the amount of 2.5 for actual expended stipends. Of that 2.2 million, 1.952 million is related to fiscal year 22, and that will be shown as an expenditure out of those applicable areas in our next expenditure report. But I wanted to show it as an anticipated expenditure at the time of this report. As we turn to the other ins and outs, the sources and uses of funds, we had a June 30th, 2021 fund balance of $32,626,731, and we anticipate a change of this amount to be about $10 million to put our projected fund balance at $42.65 million, and that is an estimate as we are still going through the audit as of right now. $42,650,603 for our expected fund balance for June 2022. Any questions on 22? Yes, sir.
Where is the bulk of that 10 million coming from? That's moving the fund balance up 10 million.
Well, most of it is coming from our savings from not having the teachers from the budget for that. Our vacancies, most of that comes from vacancies. And then a lot of it comes from the over collection of revenue that we had as well, because we collected more than what we anticipated.
What was that total over collection?
It netted out to about $98,000, but each line was different for each collection. And so, yes, the total was, when you net the under collection and the over collection, it comes out to $98,000 as of now. Of course, that's unaudited. And then we only expended 93% of what we expected to expend. So that 7% that we didn't spend, that also contributed to a net fund balance. For that. Yes, that's correct. Since salaries is most of our budget anyway, you're right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. As it relates to fiscal year 23, we've collected approximately 17.62% of our expected revenue. We also received some tax revenue for this fiscal year 23 as well, in the amount of $714,052.62 for FY23 tax collection. We also have a revenue projection decrease from current State Department of Ed expectations of approximately $1.4 million related to the new funding formula. We've collected $11.2 million to date for the funding formula. And as it relates to, okay, that's the revenue. So total revenue to date is $25,847,541 collected for FY23. As it relates to our expenditures for FY23, we see that we've had, if you look at function 311, there was a big increase on that line, and that again is due to iTutor. The $1.48 million that's in parentheses at the top for 110 is the amount of the total iTutor for FY23. Again, this is an encumbered amount. It is not the actual expenditure amount. But to show a conservative report, we show all the encumbrances in that line item. And so we anticipate the maximum amount to spend for that is about 1.4. Also, as it relates to our 311, that is the amount of iTutor that will be increased because this budget did not include that amount. So we'll see expenditures to exceed, and right now with that encumbrance it's at $922,000. As it relates to pupil services, we saw an increase on that, and that again is related to contracted services needed for our visually handicapped students. And as it relates to our retention stipends related to FY23, for our newly hired employees that received a stipend, we had a payroll gross amount of $281,538. This amount will show expended on our next board report for actual expenditures. Let's see. Also, if you would look at the last note about our fund balance, I carried that fund balance, projected fund balance for 22, 42,650, 604 forward into our current change in fund balance is a negative 962,381. Our expected fund balance for fiscal year 23 at this point is 41,688,223. There is an error at the very bottom. The 43,922,121 in the narrative at the bottom should be 41,688,223. And this would conclude the expenditure portion for our FY23 report.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Dr. Hilton.
I think Sean,
Oh, was that Sean?
that was Sean, I
Oh.
raised my hand.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, it's me.
Mr. Dr. Reagan?
Can you share how long the contract is with the iTutor program?
Well, it is for 33 or 30 positions, I believe. We'll get the exact number of positions. So it's for the amount of positions that we anticipate. We pay for those as we get teachers. So we may not spend the 1.4 once we reach the amount that we budgeted for. But I can get the exact number of positions that we anticipated, and that's what the contract is for, that number of positions.
Okay.
And I can get that number to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, Sean, your question was the length of time, the contract for 1 year?
Yes, it's for a year if we hire the positions.
It's for 1 year?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I have a question from that. All right, so this year's budget,
Mm-hmm.
which is showing a deficit of 962,000.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And in that budget, however, is all numerous positions that are not currently filled.
Correct.
So one would speculate that if we don't fill those positions over the course of the year, then we're going to have another increase in the fund balance.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, Mr. Alston?
Yes, Ms. Spearman, I have a question concerning the line item for instructional services. And I know there's been a lot of transition. And I received some concerns from our staff in the arts community, if you will. And I'm pretty sure it's just a miscommunication that there isn't money allocated to the arts in our budget. And I know we generally have passed our budget where the allocation for the arts has been included in instructional services. Is there a way for, I guess, the administration, not necessarily you, but the administration to have conversation with our school-based leaders in our arts instructors concerning their budgets and their allocations and how that works out of instructional services? And Dr. Baker, I know you've been a vocal advocate of the arts, and maybe you can tag on to that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we historically have taken money out of our capital projects bond money, and it has been as high as $200,000. I think the last time it wasn't quite that much, and the prior administration divided it amongst all the schools. However, some of the schools don't even have arts programs like the Career Center and the alternative school. So they should, and many of the elementary schools did not expend it. The last report we got was about 6 months ago, and it showed many of the elementary schools had not expended their portion. The ones that usually get all of theirs and spend all of theirs are your high school band, choral, and your middle school orchestra programs. They always, and the bulk of it is to buy instruments and things that our kids' parents can't afford for the rentals of it. And also the competitions where they have to travel for the kids to compete in things. So I don't know where that report might be in your files. I know we could probably go back and look at it and find it in our stuff, but I'm sure there's money there. And I also, like Mr. Austin, I got a couple of calls that there wasn't enough money to even repair band instruments. So something didn't quite sound right.
Yes, sir. We did locate that the last time monies were allocated for the arts was in 2019 under that capital, I believe it was the spring capital bond, approximately 138,000 to some degree, I believe that's it. And they were split up. We do track that bond by a specific account, and so to date, it's only about $5,200 left out of that. And we are set to meet regarding the current capital bond money proceeds.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, members of the Board of Trustees, we've already begun discussions about that, certainly as a proponent of the arts. On a personal level and professional level, we're going to do what we can to make sure that we're serving all students. So please be assured that we have already begun those discussions and plan to bring back some information to the Board of Trustees at the appropriate time regarding the funding of arts programs for the Sumter School District.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Ms. Spearman? Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Wright?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I will try to be brief, but I want to make sure that I am explicit in outlining my goals for the Sumter School District in the immediate future. Today is October 24th, 2022. 2 days before the superintendent's 56th birthday, by the way. But it is also day number 116 of my superintendency here. I just counted it up today to make sure I had the numbers right. So historically, when superintendents come to a new district, within the first 100 days or so, they come up with an assessment of where the district is and their observation of the district and try to create some initial goals. So I want to be clear that these goals that I'm going to share are certainly not final goals. They're not explicit goals, but they are simply beginning goals for us to chart a course towards continuous improvement and value-added leadership during my tenure here as superintendent, which I hope will be a long time. So the first one, all of these goals, first of all, are in alignment with school improvement plans and the information that is included in them. So once I formulated kind of the concept of these goals, I sought to align them with the school improvement plan goals with the assistance of my executive team. So let's go with the first one. The first one involves efficient and effective operations. So from the school improvement plan lens, it talks about the superintendent evaluating district programs, operations, and functions that promote educational equity. So, of course, that's a sensible goal that talks about looking at the whole ball of wax, figuring out who we are, and where we'll go. So the goal that accompanies that is the superintendent will work to implement the equity audit and the board-approved realignment of schools for the school year 23-24. You all know better than I do that prior to my arrival somewhere in the spring of 2022, a realignment of schools was approved by this current Board of Trustees. It is my role as superintendent of school, along with those folks that work with me in our leadership team and thus and so. Our role is to implement the realignment that was voted upon. I want to repeat that again. Our role is to implement the realignment that was voted upon at this time. So that is goal number one. Goal number two, high-performing workforce. The school improvement goal talks about evaluating processes to increase a highly competent workforce by attracting, developing, and supporting dedicated employees. The goal that I have created to accompany that is the superintendent will conduct a salary study in order for the Sumter School District to become competitive with internal and external organizations. South Carolina school districts, we want to become competitive with them, as well as all other organizations in and around Sumter County. So a couple of meetings ago, this school district board of trustees joined me in approving a salary study. That work is underway. We will be submitting a request for proposals to get that work done very shortly so that we can make sure that we have out of the other end of that a salary study that does three major things. One, that clearly outlines what people get paid when they come to work for us. That's pretty simple. It will also have very descriptive job descriptions for the work that is done, and ultimately there will be tables created to clear up what is right now at times an unclear path to assessing salaries for employees. In order to do this work, we need to make sure that our work and that what we're offering employees is a living, reasonable wage. So we're hoping that that work will help us be able to have conversations with legislators, both local and state and federal if necessary, to make sure that our salaries are competitive so that we can maintain a good workforce. Goal number three, safe and supportive schools. The goal from the school improvement plan says the superintendent will provide a safe, respectful, and welcoming learning environment that fosters a climate of support and respect by reducing student behaviors that impede academic success and school safety. The goal that I've created that matches up with that tenet is the superintendent will evaluate safety procedures and the disciplinary process to determine revisions to board policy JICDA, which is our code of conduct. We're hoping to roll out a new code of conduct that is more conducive for today's school environment for the 2023-2024 school year. And then lastly, goal number four is aligned with the college or career readiness goal that is in the school improvement plan. And the goal says during the 2022-2023 school year, the superintendent will develop and implement a plan to align instructional practices to state standards for continuous improvement. And so what we're doing, we are going to look at the data that you just heard earlier that indicates work from the 2021-2022 school year. We choose to use that data as baseline or benchmark data from which to begin on. It is the first year, kind of sort of post-pandemic, and so we're going to use that as our baseline to build upon. You heard also information that talks about accountability data being a moving target. Certainly in the state of South Carolina, there is work undergoing to reevaluate the way student growth is measured. That is going to provide some changes, to say it lightly. for us in the way that we go about making sure that students are ready. So for this year, as a benchmark for improvement of student outcomes, we're going to work to implement the expectation of a 6% improvement in proficiency across all measures of student accountability. So every measure that you heard earlier, the goal this year is to increase each of those goals, every single one of them, by 6%. In the classroom, that means if I'm teaching a class of 30 children, I need to make sure that 2 additional students are proficient. If generally, historically, if you improve proficiency at that level, it generally takes care of reaching growth measures and so forth. We're going to do that by ensuring that learning, as you heard earlier, is student-centered, or the term that we're using here is learner-centric. So ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Trustees and audience, those are superintendent's goals for this year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Wright, do we have any questions for Dr. Wright at this time? No questions? I'd like to just ask one question, Dr. Wright.
Yes, ma'am.
As a board, how and what can we do to assure that, or assist you in making sure that you achieve your goals?
Well, Madam Chair, I've outlined some items here that I think will address that. For goal number 1, where we talked about the realignment, simply the Sumter School District Board of Trustees can help to support my goals by supporting the work of implementing the equity audit and the realignment of schools for the 22-23 school year. The second goal, where we talk about salary study, Sumter School District Board of Trustees can help support the goals by supporting the implementation of and from the findings of the salary study, and collaborating with legislators to make sure that we get the funding that we need to get people to where they need to be. The third goal, the Board of Trustees can help support my goals by creating and supporting policy after the assessment and updating of safety and disciplinary protocols, procedures, and processes for the 23-24 school year. And then finally, in terms of achieving the student achievement, the Board of Trustees can help by challenging us all to ensure that the measures are met and the resources are provided to increase student achievement for all students. So that would be my answer to the way that the board can help me.
Okay.
Help us.
Any additional comments or questions? If not, thank you, Dr. Wright,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
sharing your 100 and how many days?
116, Madam Chair.
116 days report with us. We do appreciate that, and the board will discuss that further
Yes, ma'am.
with you. Okay. Thank you so much. And do you have anything else to share with us under 4-point superintendent report?
No, ma'am, Madam Chair, that's all I have this time.
Okay. Well, we thank you and everyone else that contributed to giving us an update and reporting to us under the superintendent's report. Thank you, one and all. That being said, per our agenda, the board will now enter into executive session for the monthly personnel report, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, termination, and/or release of an employee, receipt of legal advice as it relates to FTC settlement agreement, and discussion of matters related to St. John and Delane. As a reminder, there is no set time frame for this portion of the meeting. We invite our in-person guests as well as our online viewers to join us again when we return to open session. I'd like to just say thank you, and if you're unable to be with us, we wish you a safe and pleasant week.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I have to make a motion to enter.
yes,
into-
but, okay. Yes, do we have a motion to enter into executive session?
Sure. You do it.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session. I'm just looking for it. I
Is there
don't
a
see it.
second? For what reason?
Oh, okay, I'll read it on. It says for the session, for executive session for the monthly personnel report, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, termination, and/or release of employee, receipt of legal advice as it relates to the FTC settlement agreement, and discussions of matters relating to St. John and Delane.
Second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second to enter into executive session. Are there any discussion? And it is for the release of, it is for the, as I read earlier, for the monthly personnel report, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, termination, and/or release of an employee, receipt of legal advice as it relates to FTC settlement agreement, and discussion of matters relating to St. John and Delane. So, do we have a second? Are there any questions? If not, let's cast our votes, please. Do you want to count, show of hand, Ms. Beg pardon? Mine's not coming up. Okay. The vote passes, and we're now into executive session. Thank you. Each and every recommendation in reference to the recommendation for the personnel report?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, members of the Board of Trustees recommend approval of the monthly personnel report as presented by administration.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the personnel report as presented.
It has been moved and properly second that we accept the superintendent's personnel report as presented. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote. Okay, the motion passes. All righty, I think that we have another motion there, Dr. Wright.
Yes, ma'am. At this time, I am asking for approval of the recommendation for termination of employee A.
Madam Chair, I move that we authorize the board chair to execute an order on behalf of the board terminating the employment of a professional employee of the district, such order having been reviewed by the board.
Second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second that you authorize the chair to execute an order on behalf of the board terminating the employment of a professional employee of the district, such as order having been received or reviewed by the board. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're now down to 7.2, and it's Dr. Wright, do you have a recommendation for approval of the second reading of policy IJL and addendum policy JCA.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, members of the Board of Trustees, I recommend approval of the second reading of policies IJL and the addendum to policy JCA.
Is there a motion and a second? Need to make the motion first. All right, Brian? Okay, is there a second? Okay, a motion has been made and second to accept the superintendent's recommendation for board approval of the approval of the second reading of policy IJL and addendum policy JCA. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote. The motion passes unanimously. 7.3, board approval of third and final reading of policies IHC, IHCA, and IMDA. Trustees, is there a motion to accept? Dr. Superintendent, do you have a motion?
I have a recommendation, Madam Chair, for approval of the third and final reading of policies IHC, IHCA, and IMDA.
Is there a motion and a second?
Second.
Okay. There is a motion and a second that the board approves the third and final reading of policy IHC, IHCA, and IMDA. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote. Vote passes unanimously. We're now down to the board approval to accept the terms of the FTC settlement agreement as presented. Trustees, is there a motion to accept the superintendent's request to accept the terms?
Madam Chair, I motion to accept the terms of the FTC settlement agreement as discussed in the executive session.
Second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second that the board accepts the term of the FTC settlement agreement as presented in executive session. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote. The vote passes unanimously. Okay. Are there any objections to the approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. I'd like to say before we leave, happy birthday to our superintendent. He will be a year younger in a few days. So happy birthday, Dr. Wright. And to all of our meeting participants and viewers, may you remain healthy and safe. Have a wonderful week. And if there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:43. We'd like to thank each and everyone for being here and waiting on our return. Thank you.